not an easy team to cover. The personalities on that team were not the easiest guys to get along with. Because there had been so much frustration, and they had fallen short in the playoffs so far. And we had written a lot of really harsh stuff, so they didn't like us. We didn't particularly like them.
It's 35 years since I watched a game and didn't, after the game, have to have an opinion that I gave to other people.
I would probably opt for the extra bench guy, extra bench bat, just because this bench has been so important to you.
I'm Greg Murphy.
I'm Sam Stafford.
I'm Todd Zalecki.
This is Ruben Amaro.
I'm Jim Salisbury.
Hi, I'm Glen Macnow. Welcome to Phillies Nation, presented by Valley Forge Tourism.
How do they do that?
Shibe Vintage Sports, celebrating its 10th anniversary as Philly's premier sports boutique. We've been through the highs and lows, from Chip Kelly in the process years to Philly Special and Bedlam at the Bank. We've cried and screamed alongside you. Our mission has always been to honor the city's incredible sports history by bringing together creative local artists with you, the fans, to tell these uniquely Philly stories. So stop by and celebrate with us at our flagship location on 13th Street in Center City, or our shops in downtown Wayne and Paoli Pike in Westchester.
Welcome to Phillies Nation, presented by Valley Forge Tourism. I'm Sam Stafford, alongside, of course, Ray Didinger and Glen Macnow, two icons in Philadelphia sports, and we're going to get right into it. Guys, you have been on multiple platforms all throughout the Philadelphia sports market, from radio, television, and print forms. But I want to know, how did you guys get your start, and what made you want to get into this industry?
Well, you want to start?
Well, yeah, sure. I was a newspaper guy. I grew up in the Watergate era, and so I found that newspapering at that time was really interesting and so on. I didn't think I was going to get into sports. I was always a big sports fan, but I was a news guy before. I covered politics and education. And kind of in the mid-'80s, I was offered the opportunity to be a sports writer in Detroit. So I was there for 2 years. Ended up in Philly writing for the Inquirer, covering sports business and the NFL. Got to meet this guy. And eventually, like most people in newspapers, I left and went into other media. What about you?
Well, I'm a little different than Glenn. I grew up in Philadelphia, and I grew up in this sports culture and in a family of huge sports fans. And from a very early age, I just loved sports. Played it, watched it, studied it, and I always just kind of felt that I wanted to be involved somehow. And just so happened when I was in school that English and writing were the things I did best. So then it just became a matter of, okay, maybe this writing thing is what I'm meant to do. So what am I going to write about? Well, why don't I write about something I really care about and know something about, and that was sports. So I've been very fortunate. I mean, I never had to leave town. I went to college here. I went to Temple. My first job out of school was at the Delaware County Daily Times, then went to the Philadelphia Bulletin, and my whole 53 years in sports media has been right here in Philadelphia.
Now, you guys did mention you both started out in print, but how much did it elevate you guys when you did jump into radio and television broadcasts?
It was very different in this sense. When you are writing for a newspaper, and if you disagree, tell me, you don't see or talk to your audience. You write for them, and you hope people are reading. Every once in a while, I'd go on the subway, and I'd see like, oh, that guy's reading my article, right? That's good. But you really don't get to interact with them. When you're on the radio, and you're talking with fans, taking calls with fans, you get a whole different perspective of what they're about. And to me, it really changed my view of sports into one that was, I think from my own perspective, more fan-friendly, more geared toward those fans.
Yeah, I think it's exactly right. I mean, it was, especially when you're in sports talk radio and you spend 3-4 hours at a time just talking to, Chris from Chestnut Hill and Butch from Mount Airy. I mean, then you really get a feel. When you're at the newspaper, when you're writing for a newspaper, even if you're in a high visibility position like a columnist, or you're covering the Eagles, which is a hot team, people are reading it, but people don't write letters very much. I mean, if I wrote an article and I got 3 letters on it, good, bad, or indifferent, that was a lot. But there's nothing to replace that interaction that you get. And 4 hours on the radio, every hour you're taking 10, 15 calls. So you know what people are thinking, and you know if people like you or they don't like you. In newspapers, sometimes you're not really sure.
Right. You never had so many people call you an idiot when you're in the newspaper.
That's
did
true. There is that.
Now, was it hard when you guys did make the jump into radio? Because you mentioned it. It's a different kind of, how you talk about the story, because you have to be captivating, you have to keep people in. Was it just seamless because you did it so long at that point, or was it something you had to learn?
To me, it was really easy. I mean, at least the radio part of it to me was very easy. To me, radio was not a whole lot different than us talking on a telephone. You're just having a conversation. Television was harder.
Okay.
I found television challenging because there's that whole self-conscious element of how do I look, on radio there's none of that. And I just kind of like the informality of radio, and I like the intimacy of radio. To me, the radio part of it was very easy and very fun. Television to me was more of a challenge because every time I went on, especially live television, you really felt like you're on the high wire, and I could never get comfortable with that.
See, I'm different. It's funny because I'm different. When I went to radio, I think it took me a while to figure out how to do it right. I think that my mistake was I originally almost wanted to play a character as opposed to being myself. And I think there's a lot of that in the industry. And so I felt like that's what you have to do. And so it probably took me a year to realize, like, forget that. Just say what I really think and be myself. And then I got much better at it. TV, I'm not self-conscious about my looks because I know I look ridiculous. So it's like, nobody's watching me for this face. So that never bothered me.
Well, it is one thing, though, because you guys had a show for a long time on WIP, 21 years. Yeah. But when you do a lot of Eagles pre and post games, you're hearing other people's reactions. So it is something on television. Do you have to kind of hold back if you think somebody has a ridiculous take? Because radio, they can't see your face. But you have like the micro emotions on TV that you have to contain.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, especially Eagles post game.
Yes.
Especially the Eagles post game show, because it's in this town, Eagles conversation is very visceral, and I was on the set, usually sitting between Governor Rendell and Seth Joyner.
Right, so which of them had that ridiculous take that you were trying not to betray your emotions?
But the
governor.
It was just great. It was just great fun because the governor was just a pure fan. I mean, there was no attempt at objective journalism. There was no attempt at being objective about things. I mean, he was just a straight up guy from the 700 level, which is why people loved him. Seth is a pure former player out of the locker room, nuts and bolts, meat and potatoes. And I was just kind of the guy in the middle that was just kind of trying to keep the train on the tracks. But I mean, it was great fun because every week you were reacting in the moment. I mean, if it was good, it was really good. And if it was bad, it was painful. But I mean, that was the beauty of it. And I wasn't sure it was going to work in this town because people would actually have to change the channel to get to us. We didn't immediately follow the game when the channel was on. So people had to change the channel. And I didn't think people would do that, but they did. And it just validated what I've always thought is, the people in this town cannot get enough Eagles. You can't talk enough about it. You can't write enough about it. The people here just have a voracious appetite for pro football, and our show is the beneficiary of that.
So I got to host the Eagles pregame show on WIP for 18 years, and I retired earlier this year, and that's the first thing that I really miss was doing the show at the stadium in front of hundreds and sometimes thousands of crazed fans reacting, responding, getting excited. It was always, I see you did post-game, I did pregame. So they never lost in pregame, right? And
you got the happier side.
Right, in pregame, and they're going into the stadium, and they're excited and so on, they would cheer, and I fed off that energy for years, and that's the thing I miss the most. That was really fun. Other than working with him, I miss that the most.
Now you guys are just well, not you, Ray, because we'll get into that. You retired, but you didn't really retire. But Glenn, you are just probably talking to yourself now when you're watching the games, huh?
It is really something different. This year, watching the games for the first time if you take my time with WIP and before that with the Inquirer, it's 35 years since I watched a game and didn't, after the game, have to have an opinion that I gave to other people. Didn't have to either write it or say it or think about it or what's the important angle. So opening night when they played in Brazil, I just kind of watched the game and then it was over. I turned it off and said, I guess I'm going to bed now. This is really, I'm not used to this. It's an adjustment.
Okay, guys, we still have a ton to get into, but we'll have more coming up.
BetPark's online casino and sportsbook. You love to play, you play to win, you bet BetParks.
When you open the BetParks app, you're in the zone. Winning is always a rush, but the money is in the moments. It's the anticipation of another face card, the thrill of an extra spin, and the pure joy of a jackpot. It's all your favorite games at your fingertips. Plus, get up to $1,000 casino bonus back if you're down in the first 24 hours. You play for fun, you love to win. You bet. BetParks.
Welcome to This Week in Philly Baseball History, presented by Shibe Vintage Sports. This week in 2010, in front of thousands of traveling fans in Washington, D.C., Roy Halladay threw his 5th complete game shutout of the season to clinch Philly's 4th consecutive NL East title. Despite retiring in 2013, Halladay still leads all of baseball in complete games since '08. Celebrate more Philly sports history with clothing from Shibe Vintage Sports, where there's a story in every stitch. Visit them at 13th and Walnut Streets or at shibesports.com.
I'm Rachel Riley from the Valley Forge Tourism and Convention Board. As a Phillies Nation partner, we're asking all of you to help us by contributing to our Freedom from Hunger drive this fall. We kicked off this fundraiser recently by serving folks in Norristown. There continues to be a critical need in the Montgomery County community due to the impact of the rising cost of food. This drive will run through the fall, the end of October, and will support over 70 food pantries and soup kitchens through the Montco Anti-Hunger Network. Our goal is to collect the monetary equivalent of over 90,000 pounds of food. So we're asking for your help to donate. Go to valleyforge.org/hunger. Thank you so much.
Welcome back to Phillies Nation, presented by Valley Forge Tourism. Glenn, Ray, you guys have multiple books that you guys have published before, but you did collab on one, the Ultimate Book of Sports Movies, where you rank the 100 best sports movies. I do have an initial question for this. Is it you guys that collaborated on this? Did you get fans' input? How did you guys determine the ranking?
It really was our opinion, but we solicited opinion not so much from fans, but from people in sports.
Okay.
Like because we have locker room access and we have access to a lot of the people, coaches, players, and so forth, we decided let's ask them what sports movies they like, because they live it. You know, they can tell kind of what's real from what's not real. So most of the opinions were ours. The 100 we decided on, but we filled it in with the opinions of a lot of the people who've been in sports their whole lives, just to kind of see what sports movies resonated with them. So we had great fun with it. I can honestly say it's the most fun I ever had writing anything. I mean, writing to me has always been a struggle. I mean, I've done it my whole life, but it's never come easy to me. This book came easy because it was so much fun.
You know what's also interesting about the part that he's talking about, where we asked athletes and coaches and broadcasters and some actors too, their favorite movies, is for most of the athletes, they would choose a movie not of their sport.
Oh, that is
Cole
interesting.
Hamels chose a horse racing movie.
Seabiscuit.
Brian McCann, the Braves catcher, chose a poker movie. And so that happened more often than not. And kind of what we determined is, it's the kind of thing where if it's your own sport, you see all the faults. You see the little parts that aren't accurate. So it was other movies that they liked.
Are we allowed to know what you guys ranked number one? Is it still, should we?
If people don't have the book now,
Yeah.
you know. We chose Rocky as number one.
Okay. How could you?
Not because it's a Philadelphia movie, right?
No.
We chose it as number one because we thought it was the ultimate underdog story, which is the template for a lot of movies. That 20-plus minute scene at the end is some of the best sports action we've ever seen. That the original, not necessarily all the sequels, but the romance of the plot and the genuineness of the characters. And what else? What am I leaving out? I mean, we loved everything about that.
That was pretty much it. I mean, we thought that there were 3 movies that were kind of on a plateau of their own, and we thought Rocky was one, we thought Hoosiers was another, and we thought Raging Bull was the other. And we thought those 3 movies, you can't go wrong. I mean, you can put them in any order you want, but okay, if we have to really decide, we went with Rocky because we just felt that it was just a lovely story, you know. And Glenn mentioned it. I mean, the sequels, I think, didn't do the franchise a whole lot of good. They made a lot of money, but I think people now kind of, you mentioned Rocky, they kind of roll their eyes. I tell them, just go back and watch the original movie, and it is just a really lovely movie. And, you know, I mean, that was our pick. We decided, we talked about it, that's what we went with. And if we had to do the book again, I would still go with Rocky.
Yeah,
I don't think there's
still
been a
is.
movie, I don't think there's been a movie that's come out since that's any better.
Not even close.
Now, guys, getting into the Phillies, you guys have both been here for decades. You already mentioned it. Ray, you got to see the 1980 team, and then you both were here for the 93 team, the 2008 team. This one might be hard for you, but which one of those teams is your favorite team overall, and which was your favorite run?
Well, you're going to go old school, so I'll go first and not go old.
Okay.
I love the 08 team. I mean, the characters on that team were terrific. Ryan Howard in his young career, Chase Utley was a brilliant player. I was a huge Hamels fan. Lidge going 41 for 41. That team and that run, the 2011 team, unfortunately, was the best team I've seen since I've been in Philly, and they got knocked out. But boy, those 5 years from, I guess it started 07 was the first time they made the playoffs, through 2011 was, to me, as good as it gets.
Yeah, and I will go with the 80 team. As a native Philadelphian, I mean, I grew up with all those years of Phillies futility. So winning that first World Series was a big, big deal. They had come close in the late 70s with some really good teams, but then they went and signed Pete Rose, and he kind of was the last piece of the puzzle. And in 1980, when they made their run, it was really great. I mean, it was really, really great. Now, the other side of it was, as a reporter covering them, they were not an easy team to cover. The personalities on that team were not the easiest guys to get along with, because there had been so much frustration, and they had fallen short in the playoffs so far. And we had written a lot of really harsh stuff, so they didn't like us. We didn't particularly like them. But in 1980, it all kind of came together. And that night that they finally won the World Series, it was a night that I think the whole city celebrated.
Had that magic for you guys.
Absolutely.
Looking at the Phillies, like I mentioned, you guys have been here for a while. So who were your favorite guys for the radio, for TV, anything that you got to interact with on a regular basis?
I found Pete Rose to be a very interesting guy.
Okay.
I liked Pete a lot. I thought that when he came here, he brought a whole new personality to the team. Everybody kind of thought that this team was really talented, but they needed that one guy that had won before to kind of bring that that kind of it to the clubhouse. And he did. And he was just fun to cover. I mean, he was just, no matter what happened in the game, if you were a reporter and you needed to go get a quote, Pete was always available, and he was really a fun guy to cover. Now, what's happened with his life subsequently, I feel bad. I mean, I feel like he should be in the Hall of Fame. I really do. I mean, I think it's almost like he's kind of served his time, and to me, the Hall of Fame kind of seems incomplete without him. And I'll tell you this much: I, to this day, remain convinced that if the Phillies hadn't signed him, they would not have won the World Series. I mean, he was that instrumental in them finally getting to the top of the mountain.
We could do a whole show on the Hall of Fame if he should be in there, because I think a lot of people agree, but then obviously for certain reasons.
No question. Very strong opinions in that.
He has not helped his own case.
Yeah,
in
very
recent
true.
years, through every time he opens his mouth. Am I allowed to say Larry Anderson, or is that a cheat?
No, you can say
Okay,
whoever.
Larry Anderson's the greatest guy in the world, and I loved interacting with him when he was still on the team in '93, and as a broadcaster, he's terrific. I mentioned Hamels before. I've always thought Hamels was a great guy to deal with. I got along well with Ryan Howard, who I think some people thought was standoffish, but I actually got some good interviews with Ryan Howard, so I'll kind of stick with those guys.
You guys both recently retired this past year.
Yeah, one of us more than the other.
I was just going to say, but you guys are dabbling here and there.
Yeah.
We're seeing your faces everywhere. So what are you guys working on now?
Well, Ray and I are putting together a show that we're putting together called The Greatest Moments in Philadelphia Sports History, which we'll be presenting in September and then again in December at the PCS Theater in Swarthmore. I am in a play at that theater. I'm in The Wizard of Oz, playing the wizard, which is fun.
Very fitting.
Yeah, very fitting. I'm involved with the Conshohocken Brewing Company, which is fun. and hoping to have my beer show back on the air. What's brewing?
Okay. I am still doing some stuff at WIP now and again. They asked me if I would do like every week, like a one-day appearance every week during the football season. So it went from once a month during the off season to once a week during the regular season.
Be careful there, Ray.
I'm doing that.
Just when you think you're out, they're pulling you back in.
I have just written another play. And Tommy and Me is still running, but I got an idea for another, and I've written another play. I'm hoping to stage that. And I've written another book, which I just finished 2 weeks ago. So, yeah, I'm staying busy.
I love it. Living the dream. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank
It
you.
was so fun talking to you guys, and hopefully we see an Eagles Super Bowl coming up and a Phillies World Series.
And now let's kick it over to Phillies preeminent quizmaster, Johnny Goodtimes, for some baseball trivia.
The Phillies had 2 All-Stars in 2013. One was Cliff Lee. Who was the other one?
BetPark's online casino and sportsbook. You love to play, you play to win, you bet BetParks.
When you open the BetParks app, you're in the zone. Winning is always a rush, but the money is in the moments. It's the anticipation of another face card, the thrill of an extra spin, and the pure joy of a jackpot. It's all your favorite games at your fingertips. Plus, get up to $1,000 casino bonus back if you're down in the first 24 hours. You play for fun, you love to win. You bet. BetParks.
The Phillies had 2 All-Stars in 2013. One was Cliff Lee. Who was the other? It was the meteor across the sky known as Dom Brown, out of the league 2 years later.
Welcome back to Phillies Nation, presented by Valley Forge Tourism. This week on the Phillies Show, Todd, Jim, and Ruben talk about what Rob Thomson should consider for their postseason roster.
Do you carry 13 pitchers or do you carry 12 pitchers to give you an extra bench bat? I will say this. If they carry 13 pitchers, that 13th pitcher is going to be Colby Allard, Max Lazar. It could be Spencer Turnbull. It could be, I wrote down who, I can't remember who the 4th guy would be, but the options are obviously not the greatest, I guess you could say. I would go with the extra bench bat, give you some more flexibility. I like what Rob Thomson did the other night when he had sent Buddy Kennedy to the plate, and then he brought him back, and then he sent Cody Clemens to the plate when the Brewers changed pitching. It gives you a little bit more options. They have more options on how they use left field and center field. With Cal Stevenson can play some center field. You can move Brandon Marsh over from left to center, throw Cody Clemens or Wes Wilson out there. So I like the idea in a series of having that extra bench bat, and rather than having a guy that you're probably only going to use if you're getting absolutely blown out, and you have Taijuan Walker for that.
I've talked to Rob about the 12 and 13 question before. He likes 13 pitchers, but to me, postseason is a different ball game. And like you said, I agree with you. You're probably only using that guy in a blowout situation. To me, that's just, it sounds simplistic, but that's negative thinking. I would probably opt for the extra bench guy, extra bench bat, just because this bench has been so important to you and been so productive, and you got some real energy there. I don't know who it would be: Wes Wilson, Cody Clemens, Cal Stevenson. Who the extra guy would be? Stevenson's intriguing. He play a little bit of defense. He's a left-handed stick. Wes Wilson, productive bat. Cody Clemens, left-handed bat, has had a lot of big moments for this team. I like the energy and the chemistry those guys bring and the production they've shown when called upon. I don't know how often they'd be called upon in the postseason, but I think as we sit here 2 weeks to go before maybe they have to start, finalizing those decisions, I would lean toward the extra bench guy and not worry about being blown out and having somebody go out and suck it up if I'm getting blown out.
There's no question it's going to be an extra bench bat. No question in my mind. That's exactly what it's going to be. You can mark it here right now. And if I'm wrong, I'll lose my house again, because every time I bet something, I'll lose my house. Anyway, it's going to be an extra bench. It's going to be an extra bench bat. And the question is it going to be Cal Stevenson Is it going to be Cody Clemens? Because I think it's going to be one of those left-handed bats. And I think it just and a lot of it, and a lot of thought will go into this. It will depend on that team that they are playing. If they have a lot of left-handers in their bullpen, if they have a lot of right-handers in their bullpen, it will depend on, and Weston Wilson's in that mix as well. And I think it's going to be, Rob Thomson thinking through those situations. Okay, I'm going to pinch hit for Johan Rojas in a late situation when I need somebody. Okay, can I play Martian center, or do I have to have Cal Stevenson be that guy in center field? And I think that they're trying to find out a little bit about Cal Stevenson right now. And that's one of the reasons why he's playing a little bit and a little bit more. And I think, and this is just me thinking as a GM, as a manager, I think you have to find out about this stuff.
For more Phillies analysis and interviews, subscribe to The Phillies Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Phillies Nation, presented by Valley Forge Tourism. You may have already heard about the Savannah Bananas. It's a baseball team unlike anything you've ever seen before. It's an extraordinary journey about transforming a struggling minor league team into a sports entertainment phenomenon. You'll learn about all of that in next week's show, but that's it for this week. For Greg Murphy, I'm Sam Stafford, and we'll see you next time.